Welcome everybody for today's KDE presentation. Today we'll be discussing DevOps and we'll be looking at continuous integration and continuous deployment as key parts of sustainable improvement and rapid delivery of service. So we'll be covering three major areas. We'll be discussing what is continuous integration, we'll be looking at what is continuous deployment, and then we'll be looking at why we involve DevOps in our processes. So first of all, what is continuous integration? According to several definitions out there hasn't been any concrete definition as to how we define certain aspects of DevOps, but this is my own definition to continuous integration. It is a process that is practiced that involves the automating and the integration of codes and changes from multiple contributors into a single software project. I'll take that again. So continuous integration is the practice of automating and integrating of code changes from multiple contributors into a single software project. It's a primary practice of DevOps that allows developers to frequently merge code changes into a central repository where builds and tests are run, and then the automated tools are used to ascertain whether the code is correct before it is integrated into the production branch. So in DevOps, there is a practice of collaboration between developers to achieve a common goal, and that practice allows people to produce rapid changes and improvements to an existing project on an existing project. So these changes are mostly in line with customers' needs, or it's already been predefined according to the scope of work. But then these changes need to be made, and most times they are not conventional changes, and they need to be done according to um, demands. So these demands that come at a time when the developers might be working on a different aspect of the project, but they are brought in to implement those changes. So because of continuous integration, they are able to carry out such requests by simply taking on the request and then getting a copy of the code base from the repository, working on it, and then testing it in a branch. That branch, there has been a pipeline, there is a pipeline on it. There's a pipeline on that branch that allows for testing of whatever change with the existing infrastructure or code base that's already on the repository. So once that change is tested, it has then been built, it can then be integrated to the production branch. So the request is made, and then the pull request is made rather, and then the review is made for the changes before it's then approved to integrate with the main branch. And then we'll be looking at what is continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is an approach where team release quality products frequently and predictably from source code repositories to production in an automated fashion. So that has to do with the second part of your continuous integration process. So once you have reviewed your changes and you've integrated it to the master repository, those changes now are reviewed as a new release, and then it is integrated to the main repository and then into production. Then finally it is released for testing, in if that is the case. Maybe the new release is supposed to be tested amongst the particular demography, and then before it is now released into the larger audience. So the focus group helps you to know how your audience responds to these changes, and how you will be able to make future changes or adjustments to the change that has already been proposed to the focus group. So why DevOps? Why do we practice DevOps? There are many benefits of DevOps, but we'll be looking at a few of them. The first is the short development life cycle, and that has to come from the previous development processes that were previously practiced before the introduction of DevOps. So because you have um, a long list of um, um, things to achieve on, and then you have a very short time to achieve those things, there's always error. That is, we expect error. So that part during the previous development processes are a factor to be considered. But once you introduce DevOps to your development process, you get to see that you get quicker delivery of features or additional um, majorly features um to already existing softwares. So once a new change is made, it is tested and then it is implemented in short time. So that's what short development cycles mean. So you detect early the errors that are prone to occur. So because of the test stages that are involved in DevOps, you can be able to ascertain what code will fail, what release failed, and then what changes that can be made. So that improves the development process in terms of reporting. So when a developer makes a change and he makes those changes to his branch, it is tested there and then he gets instant feedback on where the error would be and how he can tackle such errors if those parameters are already defined. And then we have continuous release and deployment. I already discussed that in the first two slides, but basically it has to do with the fact that once you develop a once you make a new release, that release is you can immediately deploy it to your production, and it is very very easy for you to scale at very short time because the whole development process is very very short. So you get instant reporting and then you can get instant feedback to give back to the customer and also to the developer should there be any change or any error that was recorded. Then you have reduced implementation failure. So reduced implementation failure has to do with when the developer makes a change, once the development team actually makes a change and this implementation isn't fully actualized by the development team, you can definitely see that because this failure is imminent, you can you detect it early enough in time. It's quite similar to early detection of the errors, but because you have a system in place that checks for these errors and it makes sure that whenever these errors occur, you take note of them and then you improve on whatever error was recorded, you have a very short tendency to produce errors in your development processes. You have reduced general costs. So this would excite most of the operations parts of the development life cycle of products. So because there is always the tendency for people to lose focus of what is important and what is not important in their development processes, they can overspend in terms of purchases or investment to the project. So before the project is already initiated, there is already a budget allocated for that project. Then along the lines of production, there are certain errors that or certain problems the project runs into, and new budget is allocated and all of those things. Once you implement DevOps to your development processes, you get to find out that these errors and spendings are mitigated because you plan ahead of time, and those unforeseen errors or unforeseen spendings are immediately curtailed in the development process because you have a checklist and those checklists are being followed by the DevOps tool you're using. So you don't have to involve any external party or involve external infrastructure or resource because everything has to be planned out before it's then executed. So you have an innovative mindset once you start using DevOps, because of the development process becomes much simpler. You get to focus on more of the important part of the work and not the part of you tackling issues that are arising as a result of poor planning. And then you have great customer satisfaction because your system works and you give your customers what they desire, and most times go overboard, and that is most times what customers actually prefer, for you to give them more than what they bargained for in the positive tangent. You get a greater customer satisfaction by practicing DevOps. So we'll look at these in details from the next slide. So shorter development life cycles. So I said companies succeed due to the ability to innovate faster than their competitors. This the main objective of DevOps are automations, continuous delivery, and quick feedback style. Due to quick and continuous feedback, the majority of errors are fixed in time, which helps to achieve faster releases. The combination of development and operations efforts in DevOps lead to quick development and release of applications in the market. That has already been is very self-explanatory. So because you have a product that is an idea, and definitely there's always somebody that has similar idea to you. So who goes to the market first determines how fast or how the market receives that particular product. So the faster you develop, the faster you release, and then you get faster returns for your investment. Yes, there's early detection of error. So the collaborative nature of DevOps facilitates a culture of knowledge sharing across the teams. The continuous monitoring and testing of the code improves the overall build quality of the application, as teams are empowered to share their feedbacks with others. Defects are detected and resolved early in development process. Yes, I can't elaborate more on this other than the fact that because there's an early detection of the error, you get to get early feedback, and then you can readjust whatever changes need to be made in record time, and then you proceed with the development process. So there's continuous release and deployment. And speaking on this, we say software development practices these days require teams to deliver quality software continuously and reduce go-to-market timeline. Yeah, and this can be achieved with DevOps using automations. The development and operations team can develop and integrate code instantly with the help of automated CI and CID pipelines. Um, Overall, DevOps facilitates the continuous release and deployment with better quality and efficiency. Better communication between teams. Yes, basically communication is very key in DevOps, because whatever you don't communicate cannot be detected, and once it is not detected early enough in the process, it leads to a much bigger problem. But other than that, there is always because you're making use of DevOps, you will definitely get the reports. So it doesn't mean that communication should be ignored, but then it is a factor that is very, very key to the foundation of whatever software development process you undergo. So DevOps improves business agility by providing an atmosphere for mutual collaboration, effective communication, and integration across all global teams in an IT organization. The preset boundaries based on roles are getting diminished in such an encouraging DevOps environment. Okay, yeah. So DevOps culture focuses on performance rather than individual goals. This makes the process more transparent as individuals work towards a common goal. So reduced implementation failure. One of the most common reasons for implementation failure is due to programming defects. As DevOps promotes frequent code revisions, it is easy to detect code defects. Also, recovery is much faster when both the development teams and the operation teams work together, taking into account the challenges both teams face during development. I explained that earlier. So because there's early detection of error and something is not up to standard, there's always going to be a flag on that particular release or whatever commit. So because that is implemented in DevOps, you can get to see that each revision of the code is always better than the previous one because it has been highlighted in the previous deployment or commit. Then revision can be made in a positive direction to improve the quality of code or software in general that is being produced. So there's general reduced costs. All the benefits of DevOps listed above result in reduced costs and require IT staff. This might be a bad thing in the future, but then it is a good thing for now, and it is something that is mostly encouraged. So nobody likes to spend beyond their budget, and because you don't want to spend beyond your budget, you want something that works. And if you have something that works, you stick to it. So DevOps is a practice that encourages reduced general costs. So according to Kevin Murphy from Red Hat, DevOps development teams reduce the requirement of IT staff by 35% and overall IT cost by 30%. And then you have great customer satisfaction. According to Puppet's 2016 State of DevOps reports, organizations can improve their development frequency by 200 times with DevOps and reduce their change in failure rate by 3 times. The reliability and stability of an application can be ensured with the automation of the delivery pipeline. With the flawless performance by the application in production, organizations can achieve greater customer satisfaction when they practice DevOps. So that is basically what this presentation is supposed to achieve. We are supposed to bring to light the fact that your customers will be satisfied if you take DevOps into practice. And if you take DevOps into practice, you must take into cognizance the fact that you're going to get a lot of changes to whatever has been conventional before the introduction of DevOps. Change is never pleasant, but then it is always encouraged. So take your time and munch on these few words that I have brought before you, but then always reach out to me if you have any questions concerning DevOps. Thank you.